That day, I thought I was just going to have a normal Thanksgiving like every other year. But no, it quickly turned into a bloody battle of the mind. I had never seen my mother lose it like that. And my uncle? He turned into some kind of deranged billionaire, screaming at the whole family about his $5 million ranch. You can't even imagine it, the tension was so thick that even the turkey looked like it wanted to run off the table. I stood there, trembling, wondering if my family was about to fall apart right before my eyes. But I had no idea, this was only the beginning. And the next shock was even louder than the explosion going off in my head. A devastating secret was about to be revealed. Don't take your eyes off this story. And remember to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss a single piece of drama. I was born into a family that always considered Thanksgiving the most sacred day of the year. The whole relatives would gather, dozens of people packed into the old wooden house, laughter drowning out the cold wind outside. Can you imagine it, a long table overflowing with food, as if we were filming a Hollywood movie about America's biggest holiday. But deep inside that dinner, there were always those hostile glances, those forced smiles, and those secrets no one dared to speak. My family looked perfect on the outside, but in reality just one spark could burn it all down. My mother was someone who always put honor above everything else. A strong woman, who would never back down before anyone. But my uncle was the opposite, he bragged as if the whole world had to revolve around him. I was used to their verbal battles, but I had never seen it explode to the point the whole house seemed to shake. What do you think, can one dinner really destroy a family? At that moment I just sat there, forcing a smile and trying to avoid the suffocating atmosphere. But I was wrong. I was the one who was pushed into the very center of that storm. And what shocked me most was, it all seemed to have been planned from the start. Who was really the one pulling the strings behind it all? My mother walked into the dinner like a queen. She wore a deep red dress, her sharp gaze cutting through the air like a blade. No one dared to challenge her, except for one man. My uncle. He showed up in an expensive suit, his arrogant smile looking as if he had just swallowed an entire city. The way he sat down, patted people on the shoulder, flashing that golden ring on his hand, only made the whole room feel heavier. The moment the first glass of wine was poured, the conflict began. My uncle bragged about his $5 million ranch, claiming it was so big it could hold an entire small town. My mother smirked, and simply said, "The most valuable thing in life isn't land, but the people sitting around this table." The room instantly went silent. I felt like two ticking bombs had just been placed side by side. I knew they had hated each other for years. But why choose this day to light the fuse? Was this just another family argument, or the opening act of something much bigger? And if my family exploded, who would still be left standing? What do you think, in a showdown like this, whose side would you be on? Leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The entire room fell silent after my mother's words. No one dared to even breathe too loudly, and my uncle froze for a few seconds, as if someone had just splashed a bucket of ice water in his face. But then, he laughed. A long, high-pitched laugh that echoed through the kitchen. He set his wine glass down on the table with a sharp clink, and said, "Loyalty? That's only for the poor. As for me, I can buy the silence of everyone here." The atmosphere exploded. Some relatives panicked and stared down at their plates of turkey. Others pretended to change the subject, but everyone heard every single word. And my mother? She didn't even blink. She leaned forward slowly and said, "Silence can be bought. But the truth cannot." God, I had never seen the way their eyes locked like that. It was like two predators about to tear each other apart. I felt as if just one small spark could burn the whole house down to ashes. And that spark appeared immediately after. My uncle raised his voice, bragging that the house we were sitting in was nothing but a slum compared to his ranch. I froze. Everyone froze. And my mother? She smiled. A smile that sent chills down my spine. If it were you, would you dare to stay in that room any longer? The moment my uncle insulted our house, I saw my mother's hands tighten around her fork. Not to eat, but as if she was about to turn it into a weapon. She stood up, the chair crashing against the floor, the sound rattling the entire table. "You think money makes you great? The only thing you have is an ego bigger than your damn ranch." No one had ever dared to speak to him like that. His face turned red as he slammed his hand on the table, shattering his wine glass, the red liquid spilling out like blood. He shouted, "Without me, this whole family would be nothing but parasites." That sentence cut through the room like a knife straight to the heart. My mother didn't back down. She pointed a finger at him and said, "Parasites? You're the one trying to turn this entire family into hostages of your sick wealth." The whole room erupted in whispers, a few people even stood up, ready to intervene. But no one dared touch the two people who now looked like raging storms about to collide. I sat frozen, my heart pounding, feeling like I was witnessing a battle for power. Would my family collapse right there at the dinner table? If you were there, whose side would you be on, my mother, the one who dared to fight back, or my uncle, the man sitting on a mountain of money? Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because what happened after this was even crazier. Just when it seemed like everything would stop at insults, my uncle suddenly jumped to his feet and pulled a thick stack of papers from his leather briefcase. The entire room froze. He slammed the papers down on the table like a bomb. "This is the contract to sell the $5 million ranch. And I want everyone here to sign it so we can split the money." I was speechless. Everyone was speechless. This wasn't a family dinner anymore, it was a courtroom in disguise. He hadn't come to celebrate, he had come to manipulate. He walked around the table, shoving the pen in front of each person. "This is your chance to change your life. Sign, and you'll have money for the rest of your days. No more debts, no more struggles." His voice rang out like a spell, hypnotic, pulling some relatives into hesitation. Greedy sparks lit up in the already suffocating room. But my mother never touched the papers. She folded her arms, her eyes cold as ice. "You really think this family will bow down to your money?" God, I had never seen our relatives look at each other like traitors waiting to betray one another. Half of them blinded by greed. The other half trembling with fear. And me. I could only wonder, would my family really shatter over a $5 million ranch? If it were you, would you sign that contract? No one dared to sign. No one could. Not because they didn't want the money, but because my mother's gaze hung over them like a sword ready to strike. She stood up, stepped into the center of the room, her voice booming like thunder, "I'd rather starve than sell my soul for a worthless contract." My uncle roared, his face burning red, slamming his hand on the table so hard the turkey plate rolled off and shattered on the floor. "Worthless? This is $5 million. With this money, you could buy 10 houses better than this rotten shack." The room erupted. Some relatives stood up and sided with him, screaming this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Others buried their heads, paralyzed, not knowing which side to take. The air was so thick it felt like an explosion was seconds away. And then, my mother did the unthinkable. She grabbed the contract, lifted it high for everyone to see, and tore it into shreds. The papers floated down like deadly snowflakes across the floor. The entire room went silent. My uncle's eyes burned into her, his hands trembling, veins bulging across his neck. I swear, if looks could kill, my mother would have dropped dead on the spot. But instead, she just smiled. A smile that made every single one of us shiver. If it were you, would you have the courage to rip apart a $5 million contract right in front of your whole family? The sound of the torn papers hadn't even hit the floor when, click. The front door swung open. 2 police officers stepped inside, their boots pounding the wooden floor like funeral drums. The entire room froze. No one moved, no one even dared to breathe. One of the officers raised a thick folder. "We have a warrant to investigate the $5 million ranch." The air shattered like a bomb had gone off. Everyone whipped their heads toward my uncle. His face drained of color, sweat dripping down his forehead as he stammered, This is a mistake, it has to be a mistake." But the officers didn't listen. They stepped closer, reading out charge after charge: tax evasion, money laundering, fraudulent contracts. Each word cut like a blade, tearing apart the shiny image he had built around himself. I was stunned, while my mother just stood there, arms folded, her eyes cold, as if she had known all along. She didn't say a word. She just watched him being cornered against the wall. I swear, the whole family looked like background actors stripped of their lines, mouths hanging open as they watched the real show unfold. The officers pulled out handcuffs. The click echoed through the room, colder and sharper than any gunshot. And I could only wonder, were all those years of glory he lived nothing more than a trap waiting to snap shut? If the police walked into your family dinner, how would you react? The whole room froze as my uncle was dragged away in handcuffs. The chair he had just sat in was still trembling. The shredded contract lay scattered across the floor, soaking in spilled red wine that looked disturbingly like blood. No one said a word. The only sound left was the heavy thud of the officer's boots against the wooden floor, each step pulling the silence tighter, heavier, almost unbearable. I looked around at the faces of my relatives. Some were filled with shock. Some with regret. And some with shame, knowing they had nearly signed that deadly contract. And in that moment, I realized, my family had just been saved from a disaster 100 times worse. My mother sat back down, calmly poured herself a cup of tea, and spoke as if nothing had happened. Sometimes, the truth comes late. But it always comes. I had never seen her so strong. Not because she defeated my uncle, but because she stood tall against an entire family trembling at the sight of money. That Thanksgiving was no longer a celebration. It became the day I learned one unforgettable truth: money can buy silence. But it can never buy the truth. So I'll ask you this: if you were in my shoes, would you stand with the truth? Or bow your head for $5 million? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because trust me, the family stories that come next are even crazier. When the door slammed shut behind my uncle, the room was still heavy with the smell of spilled wine, half-burned paper, and fear. I sat in silence, staring at the cold turkey on my plate, wondering, had I just survived a nightmare, or stepped into the first chapter of a new one? That Thanksgiving, there were no toasts, no songs, no forced smiles. Only silence. Silence, and every pair of eyes fixed on my mother. She remained seated, calm, almost serene, as if she had known all along it would end this way. And in that moment, I realized, this dinner had never been about turkey or wine. It was the most expensive lesson of my life. That truth can tear a family apart, but it's also the only thing strong enough to hold together what's left. If this story shocked you, let me ask you something: in your family, who has the strength to stand up against an entire world built on lies? Thank you for staying with me through the wildest story of my life. And if you want to hear more secrets, more unthinkable family twists, hit subscribe, because trust me, this is only the beginning.